You're listening to SaskScapes, a podcast featuring the stories of arts, culture, and heritage in Saskatchewan. SaskScapes continues its podcast from Kindersley and area with a stop in Alsask and Loverna. I'm Kevin Power, and you've no doubt heard the song Home on the Range with the iconic verse, "Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play." I piled into the truck with my host, Bill Warrington, and followed him through the country, his home turf, where there are deer, and I did see antelope play, and cows, and somewhere there were buffalo, I'm sure. Our first stop was in Alsask, where we picked up Bill's friend Bud Anderson. Bud had sandwiches and beverages for us all, and off I went on a tour from the back of Bill's truck. Okay, well, this is very exciting because this is the first time I'm making a podcast while literally on the road. Yes. I am in a truck in Alsask, Saskatchewan, and I'm riding in the back of this truck, which is being driven by my pal Bill, who we're going to hear more about and more from later on. But for now, I have another guest with me. Would you mind introducing yourself to us all?
I'm Bud Thomson.
Bud Thomson. And
my right name is Robert John.
Robert John Thomson?
From the day I was born, I'm Bud.
Now, who decided you were Bud?
My father.
Right. And was Bud a popular name in your family? We just said, well, we'll make you Bud.
Yeah.
Are you an only child?
No, I'm one of 11.
Yes, another big family.
Yeah.
And did you all get nicknames?
No, the others I don't think got nicknames. No, they didn't.
Right. And so you were born where?
I was born in just in the Alberta side of Saskatchewan here, and about 10 miles south of Alsask.
All right. Wow. So you stayed around the area.
Yes, except for a few years of my life I was working other places.
Right. And so, are you a farmer? Did you grow up farming?
I started farming. That's what I wanted to do. And I married a girl who thought the same way.
Right.
And she was is a daughter of a homesteader.
Right.
My dad wasn't a homesteader, but he came out on the excursion. You might have heard of that. Mm-hmm. To help with the harvest. Right, but tell us all about the excursion. Well, he was working in Ottawa and wasn't keen on the job he had. Right. And he heard about these harvest excursions where the government paid part of the fare, or all of it, I'm not sure about that. Mm-hmm. And to get guys to come out west to help with the harvest.
Right.
So he got on the train and came west and came to Alsask and never went back.
And never went back?
No.
Wow. And so, but he didn't have a farm himself here?
No.
So you weren't inheriting a farm?
No. He farmed in his years later there, yeah.
But the farm you and your wife got was not one that had been passed down from a family?
No.
Right. And so your dream was to have a farm for both of you?
Yes.
Right. And so when did you officially become a farmer?
I probably was, I got married when I was 20. We were probably 5 years later.
Right. Yeah. And for how long did you farm?
I farmed up until just this spring, and I sold my land to my son.
Just this spring?
Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah. So that's been your life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Amongst other things that I did.
Yes, what other things?
I was on the municipal council for 20 years, or 22 years, I think.
Right. And
I was a wheat pool delegate for 25 years. So that occupied my time, as well as looking after the cows and the chickens. We had old McDonald's farm is what we had.
You had old McDonald's farm?
Yes, we did. And the kids came along. We had 4 children.
Uh-huh.
And there's one, I just sold my farm to my oldest son.
Right.
And so
maybe, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
I'm going to drive you through Alsask, so maybe Bud could tell you something.
Oh, right. Okay, so we're going through Alsask right now.
We're going through what was a thriving town when I was a boy.
Yes.
And I've seen it come to, the only business left on Main Street is the post office.
Right.
And we had a big hotel here, as you can see.
The Alsask Hotel.
Yeah, it's going to rack and ruin now.
Station was right over there.
Yeah, the CN station and the elevator row, of course, that every town had.
Yes, and now all that's left is the track.
Yeah, the track is...
Explain to them about the reason they come here was because of the water, but...
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I gather that Alsask has incredibly good water.
And we've got water that the CNR developed. It's about, I'd say, 4 miles east of Alsask, down on what's called there was a branch line going out of Alsask down to Acadia Valley and those other towns down there. But they developed this spring water that's out there, and still to this day flowing like...
no kidding.
And the CNR had a water tank in town, big water tank, where the locomotives would fill up with water because it was good water, easy on the boilers.
Yeah.
And the town was, at that time, big enough the crew could stay there overnight and take this train back out. And the trains traveling through town would water up there too.
Uh-huh. And so what would the population of Alsask been when you were here?
Well, when I was here, it was probably around, I don't know, might have been 400.
Mm-hmm. And now?
And now would be 100 and something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a school that's still here? Or
the school, you're just going to see it right off
there.
Here.
Here's the school now.
No, right here. The big brick school, right there.
This one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Grade 1s to 12.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's not working, though.
No, it's not working.
That would have been it, though.
Yeah.
Built in around when?
Oh,
1911?
17, I think. I remember what's written on the wall there.
Uh-huh. Right, so the kids are bused to another school now?
Yes, they are. They're bused over to Maringo.
Right.
And that's a composite school over there.
Tell me, what were relations like between the Alberta side and the Saskatchewan side?
Yeah, relations were good.
Yeah?
Yeah. We got to know the guys over at Sybil, that's the next town.
Right.
You know, everybody played baseball.
Was that the pastime, baseball?
Yeah, baseball, sports days and stuff, and so the farmers all quit working in the field to play ball, you know.
Right. Right.
Some of them were pretty good.
So, what didn't you have growing up that we now just take for granted?
Well, television for one thing.
Yes.
And
they were just stopped in front of the old school here.
Like, there's so many cars, like every kid's got a car, it seems like nowadays.
Yes.
You know, if you're of an age, you can get a car.
Sure.
We walked.
You walked? Really?
Yeah.
So what would have been the furthest distance you walked to get?
My dad's farm, where I was raised, was only a mile from the school.
All right.
And I was one of the lucky ones. Like, our family was lucky that way.
Right.
Others had to come some distance, you know. And there was, for high school students, they came off of the South Line with Ontario and Erie, and they would board in town here and catch the train back out in the weekend.
Right.
So they...
And was horse and buggy not an option?
Horse and buggy was kind of, in my time, was not many people had them anymore. No. They had old cars.
Right.
You know, and there was the odd one that would have a horse and buggy, I guess.
Right.
The guy's land that I got, Mr. Richards, he had nothing but a horse and buggy. Uh-huh. And he was here. I was talking to him, and he said he landed in Alsask, just north up here where the Air Force Base is. And Alsask was nothing but a few tents.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And he said he got made his bed underneath the wagon for to spend the night, and when he got up, there was 4 inches of snow, he said. So he was out early in the spring, I guess. I don't know what year that was.
So what did you do before television for entertainment, other than baseball?
Well, we had the radio, of course.
Yeah. And do you remember some of the radio shows you liked?
Oh, yeah. Like my dad controlled the radio on some nights because he wouldn't miss a boxing.
And where would the radio station, where would you have been getting the signal from?
We'd be getting it from Watrous. That's
from
right.
Watrous?
Yeah,
right.
Watrous.
Right.
CBC. And so, yeah, we all had our favorite shows, like the Green Hornet and some of those kinds of shows.
The Shadow.
The Shadow, yeah.
Amos and Andy.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did your mom do?
My mother was a mother. She had 11 kids.
Right. She didn't have time to do anything else.
No.
And did she make all of her own clothes?
No, I don't think so. She there was never much money,
Right.
She managed to get her clothes. I don't remember her making them.
Right.
And that's not my old home, just right over there that you see.
That little, yeah.
That's
where it was.
Yeah.
And is that still considered Alsask as well?
Yeah, that's just like a mile out of town.
All right.
So we were raised mostly there.
Wow.
And walked across this field
Yes.
in the wintertime and made a trail across there.
You must love this area to have stayed here all of your life.
Oh, yeah. It was easy for me and because my wife was raised here as well.
Right.
And when we were both working in Calgary, when we got married and decided that we could set up a farm, we came and did that together.
Hey, it's Kevin. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Just a quick reminder that the SaskScapes podcast is available for free on your favorite podcast app, or you can stream it from your browser. Check out the show notes for the link. On the SaskScapes homepage, you'll notice something new under the logo called SaskScapes Plus. You can't miss it. There's a big button saying support with a heart icon next to it. I'd love it if you could click on that button and help keep this podcast series going. When SaskScapes launched in May 2014, it was the first podcast in the province celebrating arts, culture, and heritage. In fact, you'd have been pretty hard-pressed to find any Saskatchewan podcasts. So I'd like to think that we paved the way. It's been because of your support that this podcast is now in its 9th year. Okay, that's it. Enjoy the rest of the episode. What's the most special thing about living here that keeps people here?
I don't know what it is now.
Is it the simplicity of life?
I think it is, and it's just neighbors.
Neighbors.
We grew up with our neighbors.
Yeah.
And we got involved in what was going on in the community.
Yes.
In the town and around the area.
Can you recall some of the more colorful folks living around here? Some of the oddball types?
Oh, let me see.
Did they have a thriving bootlegging business around here?
Yes, there was in town.
Yes.
There was a Chinese guy. He had a laundry.
Chinese laundry.
And the bootlegging, of course, was, I don't know which was the best business. But
Right, right. And so
Joe Wu was his name. I remember him quite well.
Joe Wu?
Yeah.
Do you have a restaurant as well?
No, but there was other Chinese people in town that had.
Right.
And Charlie Wong was one of them. He had the Carlton Cafe, and that was across the street, not far from where the bootlegger was.
Right.
But he was on Main Street, and the bootlegger was up the other street.
See, this is a point at which we should feel very confused, because we are literally now between two signs. One that says "Welcome to Alberta," and the one behind us that says "Welcome to Saskatchewan."
Yeah.
So how do you know what time to set your clocks at when you?
It's a little confusing in the way.
I'm quite sure. Are they literally over there an hour difference from here?
Yeah, we stay on our regular time.
Right.
They change their clocks.
Right.
So it's confusing. If you have to do business in Oyen, that's the next town. you got to remember what time you're working on.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
You can arrive an hour early or an hour late for
you
things. So back to the bootlegging. So it seems that bootlegging was known about.
Yes,
and
it was.
Just not talked about.
Yes, it was kind of undercover.
Was it undercover, or
I'll
did
bet, yeah.
even the authorities know? But
Oh, yeah, the authorities knew all about it.
Right.
And at that time, they were selling the Irish sweepstakes. Was definitely against. Was a no-no.
Now tell me about the Irish sweepstakes.
Well, it was races over in Ireland.
Okay, right.
And somehow, these Irish sweepstakes got into Canada and different places, and they were illegal, really.
So they were betting.
Yeah, they were betting.
Right.
And so somebody in the community had some connection. He got these tickets. Mm-hmm. And I can remember when they came, there'd be quite a undercover going on about who was buying sweepstake tickets.
Right.
And
would you all meet in some central place?
not me. I had nothing to do with it.
No, of course not. No.
I was too young and too broke for that.
Oh, right.
But anyway, that was going on.
Yeah, because how much would a ticket cost?
I think they're around $5.
Right, which would have been a lot of money then.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
But anyway, across the street where Carlton Cafe was operating, when I was a boy, there was other cafes that burnt in the fire.
Right. Now, when you say the fire, was there a major...
Yes, there was. It burnt half of Main Street, 1937, I think.
Half of Main Street?
Yeah.
And did they determine the cause?
Yes, it was started in one of those Chinese restaurants that was on that side of the street as well.
Right.
And it left the drugstore on the north end of Main Street there on the one block.
Right.
And a hardware store on the far south end. And the rest in between burnt.
Was it a suspicious fire or?
No, it wasn't. It was caused by, people they were putting out ashes and stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
So somehow, I don't know really the details of how it started, but the town at that time had a pretty good fire department, and they saved the rest of the.
Now, would they have been a paid fire department or a volunteer?
Volunteer.
Right.
And they had a big old pump on, those horse-drawn fire wagons that they had.
Yeah,
you probably saw pictures of them.
Yep.
Well, there was one in that sat over a cistern in what we call the town hall.
Right.
And it had a big engine mounted on it, and all the horse stuff was, you could see the harness, not the harness, but the poles and the wood, they had them hoisted up to the ceiling.
Right.
They used to drop down on the horses, you see.
Right.
Well, by my time that was done for, but the stuff was still there.
Right.
So they had enough hose to reach pretty near anywhere in town, and that old engine would put out a pressure just more than two men could handle almost.
And what was communication like? Did you have at what point did you get phones?
I guess they must have got phoned. I don't know. The fire bell would ring.
Right.
Had to be the town people would know what that was about.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. That was the major signal.
Yeah. There was a big bell up on the top of it, in a tower on top of the town hall.
Right.
And that, if it rang at an odd time, that would be a real signal that something was going wrong.
Right.
I remember that. And when I was sitting in school one time and the bell rang, and I thought, what in the world is going on? And later that day we found out that Italy had surrendered.
Oh.
And one of the old veterans was ringing the bell in celebration of that.
Wow.
World War II.
Now, during that time, there was a lot of things that had to be rationed, like sugar.
Yeah, there was. Everybody had a ration book.
Yeah.
You couldn't get tires.
Right.
Gasoline was rationed. Farmers could get enough stuff to get by with.
Mm-hmm.
But everything was rationed. But the ladies got so they knew who needed what, or they didn't want these coupons. They'd trade them, back and forth. I have a ration book at home in my.
You do?
In my drawer, yeah.
And so that was the advantage of having neighbors, is that you really relied on each other.
Yeah. Like sugar and and jam and things like that were rationed.
Right. And you took nothing for granted. I mean, everything was precious.
But like my mother, and like a lot of mothers, she had a flock of hens, you know.
Yep.
And
Hang on, guys.
Yeah.
We're going through the mud.
We're driving up the Meridian, you know.
Yeah, we're on the Meridian. That's
We're on the
Alberta
Meridian,
there.
Right.
That's Alberta over there.
This might as well be ice for the amount of sliding around we're doing.
Yeah.
You're not doing this just for effect, are you?
No,
Bill?
no.
This land up here was
It'll be
my
another water hole, eh? No.
Right.
my brothers had this land and this land. All this land has been changed hands in the last 4 or 5 years.
This was your brothers had or still have?
They had. They've sold
Right.
out and retired. This is really good land up in here. That's why the mud holes are like they are.
Right. Now
No,
you said your farm you sold to your son?
Yes.
Right. So that must feel good to know the farm
Oh
stays
yeah.
in the family.
Yeah. And he already had some land, and he just we had 4 children,
Mm-hmm.
and we were wanting out. So the kids got together and decided what was going to happen.
Uh-huh.
That Bill was going to buy the land,
Right.
and the rest, they set the price. I couldn't even set my own price.
Right. Right. Well, plus it's hard to set a price when you're selling it to your family.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
So anyway, it's been working. Now now we're getting away from the old stuff. But
Right.
Look at the antelope here.
yeah,
Oh,
right here,
there's an
antelope.
The
antelope.
young ones.
3 of them.
Wow.
There's 2 mamas and 3.
Oh yeah,
One of
there's-
them must have had twins.
We're driving by some antelope. Now, these antelope are wild. They're not.
yeah, they're wild like deer.
Right.
Yeah. When we were kids, speaking of deer, when we were kids and going to school, there wasn't a deer in the country. And
Is that
now
right?
they're the curse of the land. They're on everybody's haystacks. They're just multiplied. Their game has moved down from where they were, you know. Even moose. Oh, there's all kinds of
All
different.
kinds of moose.
Well, there's quite enough that they have a legal hunting season for them.
Right.
If you're wondering what that crop is, that's peas.
These are peas here.
There's peas, yeah.
Right. This is what makes this country tick.
Yeah, it
This
is.
is the economy of the country we're driving
It's
through.
right here. This is the economy of the country here, bud.
Right. Exactly.
This is lentils here.
Peas and then lentils.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure what that would be. It looks like there's a beard coming. I don't know, there isn't. It's just a short blade.
So your mom had to look after 11 kids. What was her cooking like?
Her cooking was very good.
Yeah. What was the favorite thing she used to make?
I don't know. We had a lot of mashed potatoes.
A lot of potatoes are pretty
and
easy
garden
to come
stuff.
by,
And we had our own meat.
and fresh pies, I bet.
Yeah. And the girls got a little bigger. They helped out a lot.
Right.
And
Did you have
No.
to help out with the cooking?
no, I never did.
Were you any musical talent in your family?
Well, my wife, she's a piano teacher.
Uh-huh.
But on our side of the family, no, we didn't have any musical instruments to
No?
learn anything on.
No?
So.
Were there local musicians that you could go and listen to play when you were
Oh
growing
yeah,
up?
like the dance bands that they had around.
Right.
They were all local people.
Right. And what style of dance would it have been?
Well, you know, it'd be the old waltzes and
Right.
just the music of the day.
Right.
But the musicians didn't necessarily come from the village, every village. There was
Right.
several villages, and there'd be 2 or 3 people from a village that could play. They made up a band.
Right. Did you have a movie theater at any point?
We had a movie theater.
Yes.
As long as I can remember, it was in the Masonic Hall
Uh-huh.
of the time.
Right.
And we had Dave Miller, in my day, he was operating it.
Mm-hmm.
And every Saturday night, we could, if we had 25 cents, we could get into the movie and buy a bag of popcorn.
For 25 cents?
Yeah.
Well, that wouldn't get you far nowadays. And what were some of the movies that you can recall going
Well,
to see?
I remember, I always liked the Westerns, you know.
Westerns,
yeah,
right.
the
All
Lone
the John
Ranger.
Wick,
Yeah,
right.
Hopalong Cassidy.
Right.
It was kind of...
Right. You felt at home watching them.
And then the kids would sit up front, you know, and hoot and holler when the film broke.
Right.
Which it did quite often.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right.
And the guy got it repaired.
Right.
And this was before power. Alsask was supplying its own power at the time. Their fathers got together.
Its own generator?
Yeah, they got a couple of generators going.
Right.
But on one occasion, they failed. So my dad brought his little John Deere tractor in, which had a belt pulley on it.
Oh, right.
Put the thing in the guy's garage and got it going.
And got the camera going?
Got the
projector going?
Yeah, got it going.
That was pretty resourceful.
Yeah, it was.
Would there have been a lot of power outages when you had your own generators?
Town was generating their own power.
Right.
And no, there wasn't, because they got some good equipment.
Yeah.
And I know I have the receipt of my dad's receipt that he bought a membership in the Alsace Power Corporation, I think it was. $5.
$5.
Yeah, and I have that still.
Winters here must have been brutal.
Winters were, yes, they were. Bill can testify that too, that some of the winters were really bad. But we didn't depend, like we were so close that we didn't have to have an old truck going or hook up a team or anything.
Right.
We just walked. But a lot of people came. They had to quite a little sleigh ride to come to town.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it was cold.
Well, I was going to say, you said we just walked, but still, you were walking through some pretty cold temperatures.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, our destination was easily seen, so...
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's the advantage of being on the prairies. You can see where you're going.
We know.
Right.
Yeah, it was a good time to be a boy.
Why? Yeah, because
I don't know. We just had freedoms and
you made your own fun.
Made our own fun. Like our farm there, where I was raised, was a mile from town, and the town guys would come out. You know, our friends, and we had all kinds of little things done to make their life miserable.
Yeah. What did you do?
One time we built an electric chair. And we had a magneto on a propeller, and we had the arm built, you know, strapped down.
Yeah.
And we put we had battery, things that you hooked up the battery with.
Yeah.
We put over their thumbs.
Really?
Yeah. That's give it quite a
the magneto.
We had a wind drive magneto.
You know what a magneto is?
Yeah, sure. But how many volts were you
I have no idea.
giving these poor suckers?
It was damn hard anyway.
I bet.
That'd be like peeing on an electric fence.
And we had from the 30s, those trees that we had, they were full of Russian thistles.
Yeah.
But they were old Russian thistles, so they weren't prickly.
Right.
And we built inside there. We could build rooms. There was so much thistles, so we had rooms that the town guys couldn't get into, and we made a jail out of a little old barn we had down there.
You guys were brutal between the electric chair and the jail. You didn't want to get yourself in too much trouble as a
They
kid.
didn't have guns, eh?
Yeah, right.
The only guns we had were homemade.
And slingshots?
Slingshots, yeah. Yeah, some guys got really accurate with those slingshots.
Well, I guess all that physical activity kept you guys in really good shape.
I guess we were. Yeah, we didn't know it, but
Right.
I guess we must have been.
Well, that was your way of life.
Yeah.
You think it's just fun being a kid now? I mean, it's hard for you to tell because you're not, but you see all the luxuries kids have
It's
now.
just a different fun, I think.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't.
Well, you had to be strong then.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. We just were kids.
You know, that's a good story, Bud, because I never heard that one before.
Yeah, we had rigged up.
Did you never get in trouble? I mean, that's pretty harsh.
We got in trouble in school different times.
No, but I mean, with the electric chair, that's pretty harsh.
We didn't.
Everybody just shook their head and said, "Oh, those kids."
Yeah, I guess the adults didn't know anything about that. That was just something. I had twin brothers.
Yeah.
And
identical
twins.
Yeah.
And they're let's see, they must be Oh, they're a few years younger than I am anyway. I don't know how old they are. Well, they were kind of mechanically inclined from day one, I think. So
they were spearheaded this project of the electric chair?
So. I never did anything bad, so it wasn't me.
Right. Right. It amazes me that in such small towns, you're able to get away with stuff and nobody know about it.
Yeah.
Was that in your mind that nobody knew about it?
No.
Or did people truly not? How'd you keep something like that undercover?
I don't know. We never came up.
So it was sort of like the bootlegging. Nobody knew about it. It was just one of those things.
When we first came to that farm, I tell you, in 1930, 34, my dad moved us out to Vancouver Island.
Oh.
Because things were so desperate on the farm. And he was renting, we weren't on that place I showed you.
Uh-huh.
We were born down south of there.
Uh-huh. And did you just leave the farm?
We left the farm. Dad was just renting this old farm.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't fit for man or beast.
Right.
So...
where'd you go on the island?
We went to Cowichan Bay, Cowichan Station.
I know it well. Beautiful place.
And my grandparents were living there, and that was the reason they went there, I think.
Right. Was that the first time you saw the ocean?
Yeah.
You were quite young.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when did you come back?
In 1937, my dad came back on the freight train, and things were worse than...
Worse when he came back than when he left?
Yeah. So back we went and stayed for 2 more years. In 1939, we arrived at that farm I showed you.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was our moved out on account of the... When I was 4 years old, my mother took us down in the basement, in the cellar of this old house we lived in. The wind was blowing, and you couldn't see anything for dust. And in the middle of the day, she lit the lamp, and down in the dirt cellar we went. My brother and I, that was the only ones there at the time.
Wow.
And you don't forget that kind of stuff.
No kidding.
That was scary.
I bet.
Well, there was a character living in Sibald, and he'd come down to Alsask to have his lunch or something, and after he'd been there long enough, he'd say, "Well, time to get back to the promised land," he'd say.
The promised land being Alberta.
Yeah.
I think every province in Canada sort of claims that as their... How often do you get to the big city?
Oh, we go... I don't know. Usually I'm going now for medical.
When you get sick?
Yeah.
There's no other reason to go?
Not really for me. I like to go up to Saskatoon one of these days to go through the museum again.
Yeah.
And we'll do that this summer sometime. Right. And other than that, it's... we're of the age, Helen and I we got these medical problems, and they send you from Kindersley to Saskatoon to the specialists.
Right, yeah, right. As we're passing this, I'm going to say that it's a barn on the left here that's sort of leaning.
Yeah.
I find it, I would love to go through the province and take a picture of all these leaning barns.
What's that, Bill? Was that a granary back there?
I don't know.
But every time I go by one, I always ask myself, why does it stay standing? I mean, why don't the farmers just kind of bulldoze them? Or are they sort of landmarks?
I don't know why they don't.
Sentimental reasons.
Sentimental reasons? Because some of them are just like ready to... I swear if you blew on them, they'd fall over. Yeah. But they're quite fascinating to look at. And you just keep them for sentimental reasons.
I guess they do. Sometimes a farmer will clean up an old barn or something, but especially if it's in the yard they're living in.
Did they have barn dances growing up?
Yeah, they used to have.
Yeah?
Before my day.
Before your day?
Yeah.
So if you went dancing, you had the dance hall to go to?
Yeah, we had what we still have, the halls, the community halls.
Right.
That's where we went. And I can remember being propped up on a pile of overcoats in a rural school while my dad and mother went to the dance.
Is that right?
And they had the desks all lined up on one side, piled up. On top of that was the coats. On top of that was the kids.
Yeah. Did you meet your wife at a dance?
I met my wife in school.
How old?
Well, I suppose she'd be 9 or 10.
No kidding. You married your childhood sweetheart.
I did. I think she did too.
That's quite sweet. What's this bird flying past us here?
That's a hawk.
It is a hawk.
Her dad was a genuine homesteader, walked to the country from Kindersley to his homestead.
Your dad?
Her dad.
Her dad walked from Kindersley to the homestead?
Yeah, out by Ontario, which is probably 40 miles or so. And he carried 2 small pigs on his back in a gunny sack.
And did he ever walk back?
I don't think so. He was heading for the homestead. He knew where he was going.
And he would have walked because there would have been,
the train the track hadn't been laid yet.
Right.
So he was ahead of that. A lot of guys came before that happened.
And horse wouldn't have been an option?
He didn't have a horse. I don't know how he managed that. He must have got them one later on, bought a team of horses or something.
But when you were walking 40 miles, surely somebody with a horse would pass you.
I don't know,
No?
There's a lot of guys doing the same thing, so.
Wow.
Now, one thing I want to point out to you as we go north here.
Yeah.
Every place that you see groves of trees like that, somebody lived there.
Yeah, that's.
So every time you see a groves of trees, somebody lived there.
There used to be a yard there.
They're not natural. They're planted trees.
And that would have been acted as a windbreaker.
Yeah, that's what the idea was. Yeah.
That was right.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
If you look over there at all those trees,
yeah,
imagine that there wasn't one there at the beginning.
Right.
They were all planted.
It was all like if you looked out this window. Like
Yeah.
that.
Right. So your ancestors were largely responsible for planting a lot of these trees.
Oh yeah, the trees in my yard there, where you drove up the lane.
Yeah.
The guy that had the homesteaded there brought that seed with him and planted those caraganas.
Oh, right.
And they're still growing, and that's 100 years ago.
And that's the same all across the province. Whenever you see a clump of trees, somebody had lived there. All the stories on these yards that aren't there anymore that nobody knows.
Well, I want you to take special notice of the sky.
Of the sky.
Yeah, it's the most beautiful sky, except for Nova Scotia. It's the most beautiful sky you'll ever see.
There's no comparing Saskatchewan skies with anywhere else.
Look at the distance you can see.
I will never look at these clumps of trees the same again. I never knew that.
Yeah, that's why they're there. Bill, you're going to get me there late.
Hey?
You're going to get me there late.
It's got to be 1 or 2.
At 1. I'd sooner do this.
What was it like being on? You said you were on the RM Council.
Well, it was a good time of my life. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. You like the nitty-gritty politics of it all?
Yeah, I enjoyed that part. Sure.
Right.
And we had a council meeting every month, and I had my district to look after. Our job as councillors mostly was road work. Looking after the municipality, really, what was going on and what could be done and couldn't be done.
Right. A few of the guys told me that they actually did spool knitting. Did you get into that?
They would what?
Spool knitting.
Spool knitting. I did spool knitting when I was a kid, yeah.
Wow, that was the thing to do.
Yeah, it was.
You should have been in Kindersley today, but well, of course there was enough guys there telling stories. That's all right. You guys are having a good time there.
We used to call that corking. I had not heard of this.
Corking,
Yes, corking, yeah. And then you'd wind it around and sew it together and make a rug.
Exactly.
Right.
Boring thing, if I were.
What's that?
Pretty boring.
I'm quite sure. You never took up regular knitting?
No, I never did. My wife knits.
Right. So what would you do in the dead of winter apart from the radio to pass the time? You couldn't go out and access the electric chair.
No.
That probably was covered in snow.
We made snow forts. We went skating. We went toboggan riding.
Right. Now, what would you skate on? The local arena?
We went into town, and they had a outdoor rink there.
Oh, they did, right.
And
were you a big hockey player?
I played hockey in my time. I was never much good at it, but I played.
Right.
And that was.
Hey, can I shut you off there for a minute? And this is where I was raised, in this big old house here.
Yeah.
My brother lives here, and my nephew lives up here in this trailer.
So your brother still lives in the house that you were raised in?
No, he lives in a new house up here.
Oh. Who lives in the house you were raised in?
Nobody. My mother was living in there, and she just passed away here.
Oh, right.
And this is the old schoolhouse. I went to school here for a while. My dad come to school here.
What was the name of it?
Pizarro.
Pizarro, yeah, Pizarro.
Wow, a little tiny wooden school. It also looked like it acted as a church.
Well, it was. It was a church. They had dances in there. And
Acted as a dance hall, too.
A dance hall and a church and a school.
Whatever was needed.
Remember when you were talking to Elliot about moving that house, tearing it down, moving it away?
Uh-huh.
It's right on this corner here.
All right. Wow. At this point, without too much detail, let's just say Mother Nature called and I was outstanding in a field. Bud was late for an event and off he went before I had a chance to say goodbye. Thank you, Bud, for your stories. I'll not soon forget that electric chair. Continuing in the car, it's finally down to the two of us. Bill Warrington, who has single-handedly arranged this entire day for me. We started at 10 o'clock this morning. Here we are at 1:30, and Bill, you couldn't be more proud to take people through this area. You were just telling me that you have relatives that you brought up from the States to show the area to, and what was it that they said to you?
Well, they said that they can understand why I've got so attached to this area, because there's so much of my roots are here.
Yeah. So we've seen where your grandfather was.
Yep.
And where your siblings.
See, like I had an old aunt that lived. When we get over here on the hills, I'll show you.
Yeah.
But anyway, this here on the middle of the section 9, right over there where those trees are, that's where Grandpa Warrington, or my grandpa Harry Warrington, and Dan Warrington come to. And then Dan Warrington lived there, and then Grandpa, he moved over to another place. I'm going to take you there and show you that place.
And they would have all walked.
Well, I don't know how they originally got here, but you see...
No, but I mean amongst each other's farms, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, they had what they called a barbed wire telephone, and they used to hook it up to the pasture fence. And they put insulators on each post, and then they had these these old telephones, you could crank the...
Yeah.
And it had to be a private thing, because it'd just be... like all these guys were all hooked together because they were that close together, right?
So wait a second, they were connected to the barbed wire,
Yep.
And what would they put on the posts?
Well, they had to put a little insulator on there,
right?
Of some kind. Maybe it was a piece of rubber tube or something.
No kidding.
Just so that, because otherwise the magnet, when you run an old telephone had a magneto in it.
Yeah, right.
And so that to get
that's
the rings.
That's what they used for the electric chair.
Yep. Yeah.
and that would actually conduct.
Oh yeah.
That would. And that's how you spoke.
Yeah, you could talk back and forth. These people, when I get up on top of the hill, I'll show you.
That's one step beyond the string and the two tin cans, really.
See, like there was a telephone company here for the longest time called Pizarro Telephone.
Uh-huh.
That was named after the school down there.
Right.
And
what year would that have been?
Oh, it had been in the teens, I guess, when they got that going.
Right.
And it lasted until the provincial government took over everything and buried the telephone lines and all the rest of it.
Right.
But there's one thing about this here farm here that's pretty unique. We're just going to drive down to the driveway.
Who lives on this farm now?
Well, this fella's name is Fisher, but he's married to a cousin of mine who was a Warrington.
Of course, you're everywhere. I'm surprised they didn't just call the town Warrington.
They named it after. There's a story in the history book in Kindersley about all these towns and how they got their names and things.
Right.
But anything, the thing that was unique about this place is there was a spring here.
Uh-huh.
And that's what, like I remember when I talked about food and shelter.
Yeah.
That was the thing that brought them here.
Right.
Right here where these cattails are, there's a spring in that slough there.
Right.
So.
And excellent water.
Yeah, they had to have, when you were farming with horses and all the rest of it, you had to have good water.
Right. So, I'm still kind of baffled by this barbed wire communication system. And what about mail? How long would it take for you to get mail here, and how did it come?
Well, you would go into Loverna. Loverna was the post office in there, but the thing was that there was enough trains. There was 3 trains a week, so you got the mail fairly regular.
For those days.
Yeah, for those days.
Nowadays, it would drive you nuts if you had to wait that long for news.
Oh yeah. And you see, like over in west of Loverna, see when the railroad come in originally, it come to Loverna and then it stopped, and then in the 20s, when things got going again after the First World War, they put the line out to Hamaruka, which was on its way to Hannah, but it never got out there because then the Second World War started.
Right.
And they used to have a guy come from Hamaruka out in there somewhere, and he'd come in here because the train would only go out there 2 days a week, so that one day they would send this guy in there to get the mail. And I thought to myself, that seemed like an awful lot of trouble.
Yeah, right.
Just to get 2 days of mail. But
sure,
the thing that really amazes you, I guess, is that everything you can imagine, everything right down to pills, groceries, mail, whatever, come on that train.
The train was the lifeline.
Yeah.
Everything.
Now this is where our farm starts here.
Right.
And we've got land almost basically. There's only 1/4 in there that where we talked about where I was raised. We got land goes all that way down.
Right. But altogether, how many acres do you have?
Oh, I don't know. I guess we seed about 3,500 acres.
How many people do you have working your farm?
Just Clarence, my brother, and I, and a nephew. Wow. Well, we have our nephews are running around there, and they do help us a bit. Then we hire out when we when we have to haul grain and stuff.
So what time does your day start on the farm?
Well, my day usually starts about 5 o'clock in the morning, but I get up and have breakfast, listen to CNN for an hour or so, see how the world's going.
Right. And then then
I would get up and go down to the other farm, and we'd feed the cows. And see, like we're driving by some cows that are ours here right now. But I want to take you in here to these oil wells because there's 2 examples here. There's the horizontal well with what we call the donkey on it. And then there's the other one with the screw on it. The horizontal one is the one with the screw on it, and this one here is a vertical.
I was just going to ask you, when do you call it a day? If you start at 5?
When it gets dark, I guess.
Right, days are long now.
Yeah.
So you can go for a while. Boy, so you don't spend a lot of time sitting idle.
I spend a lot of time sitting either in a tractor or driving around doing something.
Right.
Now they've electrified all these wells so that they used to have a little pop engine on them, and that's a horizontal well there.
Right.
It hardly makes a sound. Pumps over into that tank over there.
You're right. They're amazingly quiet.
Yeah. I'll take you down to one where there's an engine on it.
Amazing. They look quite simple, really, the technology. I mean, it's... Okay, so tell me...
When I get up, I have breakfast, and lots of mornings I'll come up here and check the cows, see if they're all in the pasture.
Right.
And basically just driving around like we're doing right now.
Right.
Now that well over there, where that donkey's running over there, that well there was drilled in 1952.
No kidding. Is that one of the oldest ones
That's
around?
the oldest one, and it's still working.
Right.
Them cows need to be getting out of there because they're in that grain field, but we just chase them across the road here and then head on out.
Do you have dogs that herd the cows, or do you just do them yourself?
We just use quads and pickup trucks.
Oh, right. I'm seeing a lot of these little blackbirds with yellow breasts on them.
Yeah.
What are they?
Oh, they're just a blackbird. There's meadowlarks. So you know what a meadowlark is? It's got a yellow breast.
Yeah, I think it's perhaps a meadowlark.
That's what it is, yeah.
Right.
So you see, from here all the way south now, you're going to go over a pretty rough road, and I'm going to take you out in the pasture here. But
do you have horses as well on your farm?
Just the one horse, and it's just a pet.
Just a pet.
Just a pet. Everybody has to have a horse. That's what the young people think. I never had nothing to do with horses.
Look, there are baby cows.
Yep.
So calving season happened not so long ago.
Oh yeah, it starts usually in April.
Right.
Most cases.
Are there cases? Well, when you grow up on a farm, you get the birds and the bees taught to you pretty early, huh? Because you're witnessing as kids. You're seeing.
Yep.
You're seeing
yeah.
cows being born. It was late into the day, and there was still so much to see. I turned the recorder off and said, Bill, I simply have to return for part 2. And so return I will. And yes, we'll hear more from Bill in upcoming podcasts. Kindersley has some very enthusiastic folks who are a testament to the stories that celebrate this part of the province. And there are more stories for me to share with you. Thanks for listening. The SaskScapes podcast is created by Kevin Power as part of the Culture Days Animateur program operated by Sask Culture. Funding to the cultural sector is provided through the Saskatchewan Lotteries Trust Fund for Sports, Culture, and Recreation. If you want to hear more of these podcasts or to see the great work being done by other Sask Culture animateurs, please visit www.iheartculture.ca. Special thanks to Paved Arts in Saskatoon for their technical support. SaskScapes podcasts are also available through the iTunes Store. Music for SaskScapes is provided by Saskatchewan-born singer-songwriter Jeffrey Straker. There is no end to the stories to be told. So, until next time,